and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. During the last segment, I started to show you the different fingerings for the notes. I haven't shown you anything for the sharps or the flats, but the basic notes of the recorder. So I want to start out today, and I'm going to show you this chart once again, which I use on a fairly frequent basis because it shows a lot of what I need to show in terms of the basics of music. So we're going to start off just as a review using this chart. Now, if you look here, this is basically all of the piano keys. There are 66 piano keys. It's lacking 2 on this end, but that's all right. We're not dealing with that end. That's all bass clef, and we deal with a treble clef. But this gives you a size of it. This gives you the most of it. I'm not focusing on any particular note here, but I do want to mention here that the recorders and other woodwind instruments play from this range to this range. Some of them more than that. But for recorders, sasutos, song flutes, this kind of thing, most of the straight instruments, what I call the melody instruments, play from here to here. Now, there are plenty of notes below, and there are quite a few notes above, but what we range in is this here. Now, I think it's important for you to know that, because if you're in an orchestra or a band or something, you need to know what the ranges of the instruments are. And in a staff, remember, a staff is 5 notes, 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the range would be the middle C, which is right here, to this C, which is right here. And that corresponds to this note here and this note here in that range. And that's the range, the 2-octave range, that the melody recorders record at and they play at. So let me just review this again. This is bass clef. This is treble clef. The middle C, which is right here, is halfway between the two. It's one note with a little slash in the middle of it. That's called a ledger line. The right, all of the notes to the right are on the treble clef. All of the notes to the left are on the bass clef. But that middle C is right in the middle, and that's the lowest note that most of the melody instruments can get, including the flutes. So here it is, middle C here, which we also call the low C for the woodwinds, because most of them don't get any lower than that. So here's the middle C or low C. It's right here on the piano, right here. That's not exactly in the middle, but that's as close as you can get. And the range of the woodwinds is from here to here. Here's one C. This is another C. Remember, that's an octave up. And here's another C, which is another octave up. So most woodwinds play within that 2-octave range right in this segment here. Now, when I started showing you the fingerings, I just want to remind you that when I show a segment of the keyboard, because I want to show you a fingering of something, we're talking about this range right here. We're not talking below it, and for the most part, we're not talking above it. Now, the flutes can get up here, and the pianos can get up here. So, you know, there's some things that the recorders can't do. Now, the melody recorders, which is what we're dealing with, from this low C to this high C, low to mid-range to high C. This is a C above high C. The flutes can get it. Beyond that, only the piano can get this range up here. But I just want to remind you of that. So let's take a look at some of the well, I guess what I'll do first is pick up the recorder and show you the fingerings that we have done so far. What I did was show you B, A, G, F, E, D, and C. The C, the note, the hole for the C is a little bit on the, turned on the right because the fingers are smaller and they can't reach over. So C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. And I've shown you that before. And remember, when you pick up the recorder, you pick it up and you curve your fingers. And if you're not using a tone hole, you just let it relax above it, but you still keep it in a curved position, because if you don't, what's going to happen is that you're going to be flat-fingered and not be able to reach the notes that you need to reach quickly. So, once again, what I started was that B. We oftentimes start teaching the notes from the B because you are having your tone hole closed on both sides, and it's easier to balance. And it's easy to drop these instruments, you know. So B, A, G, bag, B, A, G, and then the right hand, F, E, D, and C. Now, if it's a Baroque instrument, when you play the F, you add an extra finger, B, A, G, F, and then the second finger down from that F is you skip the middle one here, and that makes the tone of the instrument a little bit more accurate. And most people do play Baroque instruments because the Baroque instruments are a little bit better in terms of their tone, the accuracy of their tone. But there's really not much difference between them. They look exactly like a regular instrument, and they are a regular instrument. It's just the way that you finger them for 2 or 3 notes is a little different. You can see if I play the F like this, and it's a little bit sharp, I add that finger and so that makes the intonation a little bit better. Then the C is below that. It's a smaller set of holes, and there's a little bit of a finger stretch. A lot of times I don't play the low C because of an injury I had to the right hand when I was practicing, and so you can always read it up an octave, and that's what it's called, reading it up an octave, and you get the C up here. And to get the B, for the B-A-G, you flip and put the top one down with the index finger. This is the C right here, the second one down with the middle finger. And for the B, you put that up, pick that up, and put your first index finger down. And it gives you that B. And then it's a case of just adding finger by finger. A, G, F, or depending upon whether you have a Baroque instrument or not. And then the E goes down, and then the D. See, it's hard for me to get that C because my finger stretches. I knocked this finger out of its socket once, and so I usually don't do the low C. It's easier to do it on the flutophone because it doesn't have any stretch to it at all. So anyway, it's hardest to get. The note that's hardest to get is going to be the C, the D. Because with the D, only one finger is down, and that's it. And you don't even have this thing covered. You pull that off, you pull your thumb off, and you have just the open hole. And it's easy to drop it like that. So what we do is we put our right hand down, and we take and we hold it kind of with a little finger. That helps it to balance. And your other finger, your thumb can go down. You can't cover your thumb hole or you won't get the D, but you can still put it down a little. That helps to balance it. But it is possible to drop these instruments. So left hand on top, right hand on the bottom, starting with the B, B, A, G, and then that F, starting with the right hand, depending upon whether you're having a Baroque instrument, most of them will be Baroque, and lift that fourth finger and put the middle finger down. That gets you the E. And then the D with all of them down. See, See, I haven't got it down exactly. There it is. And then that C is just that middle finger with the thumb hole covered. Now, most of the scale, you have the thumb hole covered, but there are some notes that you don't. And there are some notes that you have to half hole. Half holing just means that you draw your thumb down, or whatever finger it is, you draw it down, so a little bit of the top of the tone hole is showing. It's not completely covered. It's just half covered, sometimes even less than half covered, just enough to let a little air through. And what that happens for a lot of notes is that it'll put it up an octave, and that's how you get some of your octaves. And all I did was use the usual fingerings and then draw that down a little bit, and then you get that. So that's how you do a lot of the octaves. So I want to take and show you more of the fingerings today, because I have 2 or 3 different ways of showing it, and I didn't finish with it last time. So I'm going to put this notebook up like this. And we're going to concentrate on this side. Now, what this is a full recorder. This is the recorder from the back side showing the tone hole in the back. That would be the thumb hole right there. And these are all the holes in the front, the tone holes of the recorder in front. And this is the staff right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the note that is in the staff, and you would know that that is a C. 1, because I've got it labeled, and because you might remember that I showed you this last time. That first space is an F. That second space is an A. That third space is a C, which is where this note is. And then that fourth space is an E. F-A-C-E. It spells face. So that's one easy way of remembering that. And this is going to be the fingering. The fingering for that is going to be the second tone hole down, and I'll show you on the recorder itself. Second hole down, I've already done that. And the tone hole in the back has got to be covered. How do we know that? This is the back of the recorder, and this is the tone hole in the back. And it's all blackened in, so you know that that's covered. I just keep that sign there so you know what's happening with the back of the instrument. So there's your C, and it's like this. So that's the C, and it's a what I would call a mid-range C. It's not like this low C. It's not like the high C. So now I'm going to start showing you. This is the D. Now I've done it differently here. I have on the left side. I can move this over some. I can move it back and forth. I forgot to. Yeah, this is good because I can see both of it. I can see both ranges now. Ah, thank you, Rick. That's very helpful. Now, taking a look at this, this is a scale from middle C up to the high C. This is the middle C right here. So I've shown some notes down to the left, and I've shown some notes up to the right. This is the middle C. And this is the D right here. This is the mid-range D. Mid-range C is right here. And the D that we're looking at is right here. It's 4 lines up. E, G, B, D. And you might remember that I gave you the phrase for that. Every good boy does fine. E, every, G, good, B, boy, D, does, F, fine. And that D that we're looking at right here is on this here, the fourth line up. So you have your middle scale from middle C on up to high C, and you have that D right there. And it's right there in the scale. It's right here on the staff, 4 lines up, and on a keyboard that I put down here, this is the lower D, this is the middle C, this is the lower D, this is the D right here. Now, this is the way it's played on the instrument. The way it's played is that second hole is covered and absolutely nothing else is covered. And as I mentioned before, it is kind of a trick to do it without dropping the instrument. So we'll do it right here on this recorder. The C is right here, and the D. What I have is my little finger down for balance. It's not covering any holes. And I have the instrument in my mouth, of course, and that's a balancing thing. And I have lifted the thumb hole, the thumb off the thumb hole. There's nothing covering that in the back. But I've balanced it by using, I put my thumb down below it. That's a help in terms of balance. It keeps the tone hole open. The little finger down here, or you could even put it up higher. It won't bother it either way. And then the only note that's actually covered is this second one that's by the middle finger, and this one is open as well. Now, I'm balancing it pretty well, but I'm using that method to balance it. I'm just not just leaving my hand off, you know, or just leaving this hand off. It requires 2 in order to balance it. So that would be the D right here, and that's a very commonly used note in music. So then we want to go to the next one, and that's going to be the E. Whoops. Now, on this, with this E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 5 fingers covering. The note is half-holed, and the way I show that, I don't know how clear that comes out, but the way I show that is that tone hole in the back is covered halfway. I blackened it in halfway. This is the E. Now, the low E, it's the same as the low E, except for that tone hole in the back. B, A, G, F, E. 1, 2, 3, left hand, B, A, G, and then the F comes here and the E comes here. And to get it higher, all I do is slip that thumb off the tone hole in the back, so part of it is showing, not all of it. Just part of it is showing, so it's not completely covered. That's called half-holing, and it'll take that E and it will just bounce it up an octave. That's all I've done is basically wiggle my thumb in the back, and that's the way I get that E. That E is right here, and it's in the 4th space, F, A, C, E. All of these notes are down except for these 2 lower ones. That would be the D and that would be the low C. Those are open, and the half hole in the back. That's how you get your E. And so the fingering for the high E is the same as the low E except for the tone hole in the back. Now, here we go to the F. The F is interesting because how you finger it depends upon what kind of an instrument you have. But what you have here, here's the scale, middle C all the way up to high C. Both of those octaves. This is an octave here, and this is an octave here. This is where that F is. And if I'm looking at this scale that goes below the middle C, the F is right here. Here it is on the staff. It's the last line up. It's the 5th line up. And when I do it with a Baroque, when I do it, I'm fingering 1, 2, 3, F, and then skip this one and add that one. And if I'm not doing it with a Baroque, all I do is I just add, I don't add that second one. So let me just show you on the recorder itself. B, A, G, F. German recorders will do it that way. And if it's a Baroque, skip this E and then put the fourth finger down so there's a space. Now, because of the fact that I want it to be a higher octave, I want the note to be a higher note, all I have to do is half hold that in the back, and it's going to come out an octave higher than if I were playing it low. That's how I play that F. So that's, it's not actually that hard, but you have to get used to it. Now, when I'm using this chart here, I'm just showing it half hold, and this is the Baroque, B, A, G, F, and then you skip that one and add that one like I showed you. Or if it's a German fingering, you just B, A, G, F, and you don't skip anything, and you just have those four down. But with the Baroque, you skip one and put down what would normally be the D one. That space is just enough to lower the pitch a little bit and to get it more in tune. There's not a lot of difference between it, but it's just a little bit of difference that you can notice. And that's the F. Now, G. G is going to be on the 2-octave scale right here. It's the space right above that last line. On this, it's way up here. If I'm doing it with notes below the middle C and above the middle C, G is right here. It's right here, and when you play it, it's not hard to play at all. It's just like the lower G, except you half hold the back again. So let me show you this. Remember when we were doing it last time, if you remembered that, B, A, G. So this is the G, and if I want the high G, I take my thumb and I lower it a little bit and half hold it. And that's the way it is. Just those 3 fingers. Everything else here is blank. You don't cover up any of those other holes. Just the first 3, and you half hold the back. And that's right here on the keyboard. The octave below it would be, let me see, the octave below that G would be down here. I just etched in the octave below. It doesn't make any difference. I just want to show you where it is and show you where the octave is. This would be a lower G. This would be a lower G. And so all of those notes, sometimes it's easier to understand if you look at the octaves. And looking at this, B, A, G, here's the G, and here's the half holding in the back, B, A, G. So therefore you've got that. Now, it's a little bit different for the A, B, and C. There's a little bit difference. Well, the A is not that different. Here you have 2 notes here, B, A, and the half hold in the back. This is the A. Now you'll notice that it is above the staff. It has 1 line through it. That's a ledger line. And that ledger line, if it were a C, there would be 2 ledger lines, and we'll get to that in a minute. But this is an A. That would be a staff line. If you do it all the way across the music, it would be like a 6th staff line. But when you get up that high and you get many staff lines, it's too hard to read. So what's done instead is they put that little line called a ledger line through it, but they don't draw it as a staff line all the way across, because otherwise it would be really hard to read. That A is right here. If we were to put the instrument down, then it would be these first 2. I just want to show it in different positions with half holding on the back. This is half hold right here, and that is the A. And when I'm teaching, I don't get much beyond that. First of all, it doesn't go much beyond that. And let me see, get my pages in gear here. Well, now we're going into the B. The B is a little different. You don't play it just by half-holing it. You do half-hole it, but you do some other things instead. You have two holes, two finger holes on the left hand, and then you skip the G, you have two finger holes on the right hand. So if I can show you this on the recorder, it'll be like this, B, A, and then you skip the G and the two like this. And of course, you're half-holing the back. Now, when I was playing the Messiah, and I do that routinely, I usually do it a little different, and it comes out just as good. But there's a whole section of the Messiah where the people are singing Alleluia, 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 and I'm playing it on a recorder. But the way I'm playing it, so at any rate, well, I see we're running out of time. I'll finish. There's just a very little I need to do to finish this. We'll finish it next segment, and then we're going to go on and play some music, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So we'll close it here. Please join me next time.